The words were strangely distant, as though they echoed from across the valley or from the clouds above. The babble of the army quieted as everyone strained to hear what the priest was saying. The silence was eerie. It was unnatural. "What is happening?" Vauclin asked, but his words died at his lips. He turned frantically to Delou, only to see that the man was staring with horror down at his hands. Vauclin grabbed him by the shoulder. Delou looked up and started talking, but no words came out of his mouth. A black fog formed at his lips, drifting like smoke from a snuffed candle. The silence was absolute. Even Vauclin's heartbeat, thudding heavily in his chest, was muted. Into the silence came a scream, sharp, tearing, without direction, but utterly terrified. Everyone looked up, but the sun still shone. The sky was clear. The scream died out, only to be joined by another, and another, coming from all around Vauclin. Coming from his own mouth, passing through him like a wave, and then on to Delou and the priests beyond. The force of it emptied his lungs, and when he tried to breathe, there was no air to fill him. Vauclin dropped to his knees. Delou fell by his side, tongue lolling, the blood of his heart pouring from his eyes. Vauclin held his friend and watched him die. The world rushed in with a crash, the sound of an army's panic suddenly filling Vauclin's head. Someone stumbled into Vauclin, a knight in full plate, treading on Delou's throat. There was fighting somewhere nearby, people dying, steel striking steel and flesh and bone. A boy fell down next to Vauclin, his chest split open. "What is happening?" Vauclin asked again, his heart numb. The blood rushing through his head was a drumbeat. He stood up and looked around. People were dying. The army was dying. At the head of the army, the three priests stood on the platform, their arms raised in prayer, their voices resonant. An inhuman chant rolled out of their throats, words meant to twist flesh and sunder spirit. Dark gods answered their prayers, tearing into the ranks of Sudran faithful. Vauclin got to his feet and ran. Each step sent a jolt of pain down Vauclin's spine. Something was broken deep inside his chest, but he pressed on. Gods help him, he had to press on. It had been 3 weeks since the ambush. 3 weeks spent crawling through forests, forsaken by God and man, eating whatever greenery looked edible, and still getting sick half the time. Vauclin tried eating some meat from a dead deer he found at the bottom of a gully, but the resulting misery ensured he would never do that again. The fact he hadn't died could only be attributed to Cinder's will. Vauclin was sure of it. He paused on the rocky spine of a ridge. In the fading light of dusk, the dark towers of the fen gate loomed grimly out of the forest to the northeast. It wasn't where he wanted to be, but after the slaughter, Vauclin had lost his mind. Cinder's reason fled. The horror still haunted him, waking and sleeping. Sometimes Vauclin was sure the dreams were true, and this daylight ordeal of trackless forests and maggot-ridden meat was the nightmare. A shadow flickered down the ridge, and Vauclin flinched. The screams of his brothers and sisters lingered in his mind. The look on Delou's face as his spirit left, his lungs starved and full of blood. Vauclin had not been able to shrive his friend's soul, hadn't taken the time to usher the man into the quiet house. He wondered if anyone had. He doubted it. They were haunting him, these bound souls, bound to him for running, bound to him for his cowardice. There was only one way to free himself from them, one way to give the souls of Delou the rest they deserved. He had to get to the fen gate, to tell Frere Gilliam what had happened, that Blakeley had used some kind of witchcraft.